Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Japa Series. Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on the time you're seeing this video. I am so excited and I want to appreciate as many of you that are returning viewers, those of you that watched the last episode, and I also say thank you to the new viewers, people who are watching me for the first time today. Thank you so much also to my subscribers, and if you have not subscribed, you can click the subscribe button, and also don't forget to click the notification bell. You see the notification, the sign of a bell, don't forget to click on it. And if you're on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, I would like to have you click on the follow button and also click on the share and share to as many as possible. You're welcome to this episode, and I can assure you that I have a whole lot of things to tell you today that will interest you and you don't want to miss any part of it. So I will advise you or encourage you to watch to the end. And please, as a means of engagement, I would like you to drop comments as much as possible. Wouldn't cost you anything to drop your comments. In fact, it is easier for me to answer you, if you have any question or any doubts, as you drop it on, in the comment section. I think it's better off than coming to, chat me privately. So if you have any question, just put it there in the comment section. And I'm going to leave some links also in the comment section. The link to our previous episode and some other links to our various other platforms. So you're welcome, and I would like you to be relaxed, and I hope you are here with your pen and your writing materials like your book, because we have a whole lot to give to you, and I also believe you are ready to assimilate as much as possible. So sit and watch. Welcome and thank you for viewing. So today's video is a continuation of the previous episode. So I would like to advise anyone who did not watch the other our previous video to quickly go back and watch, after this one, the video will always be there, and I will leave the link of that particular episode in the comment section, or when you're reading our transcript, you will see the link there. So today we're going to focus on what I would call health and care worker. If you're a health care practitioner, or a care worker like the home care workers, or a support worker, today's episode is for you, because last week we talked about skilled workers and also the healthcare workers, but we focused more on the skilled workers. But we still have a lot more to say about the particular visa type, the skilled worker visa. But today we are going to be giving attention to healthcare practitioners and also support workers, that's social care professionals. So I would like us to pay attention and then also watch to the end, of course. And don't forget to ask your questions. Don't wait until the end of the video. You can even start dropping your questions at the comment section while while watching the video, so that you will not forget whatever you want to ask. Okay. So on today's episode, here are some questions that we're going to be answering. And the first one is, what are the current immigration rules when it comes to health and care worker visa? And then, what documents do you need? Okay. Are they recruiting foreigners? And then which companies can you apply to? And of course, how to apply. I don't know. We will not touch on all the questions today, but we'll try as much as possible to answer most of them. Current immigration ban on caregiver visas. Now, Nigerians are no longer eligible to apply for health and care worker visas. For the health worker visa, if you are a professional like a doctor or a nurse or physiotherapist or people in such higher skilled levels, they can still apply to the UK for health worker visa. But people in other level, whether for health worker, if you are not in that professional level, and for the care worker visa, you are no longer eligible. Even if you have a senior role in the caregiver system, you can no longer apply for the UK health and care worker visa. However, I am bringing another country today that you can, as a health or as a caregiver, apply. And currently, this country is doing something interesting concerning this visa type, and that is why I want to quickly talk about them, even though I'm not looking into that continent yet. But I want to talk about this country just in case there are people who are ready to start their application. They can look into that country. So we're not looking at UK again today in terms of the health worker visa. So while we're talking, you're going to see the country and the benefits, and what's going on with their immigration system now that you can quickly take advantage of and start your application. Okay, so talking about the ban, I would like us to read it together so that we understand very well. At least you can research on your own, but you can also read it here together with me. It says the United Kingdom has placed significant restrictions on applying for worker visas, care worker visas, specifically care worker visas from Nigeria. Okay, whereas, so here is the country that I'm introducing us to for those of you that are ready to apply for a health and care worker visa. So whereas Ireland remains largely open to overseas applicants. So you can see, we're going to read, let's read down before we go into the visa itself. The United Kingdom, looking at the major restrictions. So let's look at the whole restrictions. It says the UK government implemented a complete reset. Okay? A complete reset of its immigration system, okay, that specifically targeted the social care sector. Okay, so majorly the social care sector, whether those in higher or lower level, and then overseas recruitment ban. As of July 22, 2025, the UK officially closed the health and care worker visa routes, okay, for new care workers. So those who managed to get in before this ban, they are safe. And it now says, so for new care workers, you can no longer apply as of last year. It didn't start now, it started last year, okay? And senior care workers, okay, then applying from outside UK. Now, no new entry clearance. You can no longer apply from Nigeria, all right, to enter the UK to that visa route, okay? Can no longer apply from Nigeria. Now, looking at the next thing that it affected also, it says dependent ban. Okay, even those who were able to apply before that closure, that means those who already had their visa before then, the care workers are already there, are now prohibited from bringing partners or children. Okay, so they can no longer bring their partners or children as dependents with them to the UK. So that's how the ban affected them, to those who already go to. Then the exceptions. These restrictions do not apply to doctors, like I said, nurses or other professional health roles. Radiologists, pharmacists, no, they are not affected, okay? So they can still apply from Nigeria and bring their families. So all hope is not lost, because I'm about to show us the country that is open now, that is still accepting, so that those who are ready can quickly, apply. We have a whole lot to talk about. Probably not today. We might not finish everything today. So Ireland has not placed a ban on Nigerians applying for support worker roles from overseas. Okay. So this currently the more viable options. So let's say you're ready to apply for this, and unfortunately UK can no longer take you. Then you can try Ireland. Okay, so it's viable option for these specific roles. Okay, so the overseas applications allowed. So Nigerians can still apply for a general employment permit for healthcare assistants and home support workers. Still talking about Ireland, okay? So we're going to look at that much later. So then family rights. Permanent permit holders can generally apply to bring their families, okay, after 12 months of working in the island. So if you get this kind of visa, then you come and work for 12 months, then bring your family, okay? So the key conditions: you must meet the updated 32,091 euro minimum salary. You know, I talked about salary thresholds, and then this qualification called the QQL. You know, we'll talk about all this. So I just thought it's interesting to let you know that you can still, you know, proceed with your plans, your travel plans. If you're ready to travel, if you're ready to go and work as a healthcare worker or a caregiver, and you are a bit discouraged because UK has closed their doors, then you have Ireland. And I told you there's something interesting about this particular visa that we're going to talk about as we proceed. So here is the news flash. It says Ireland offers relocation. Let's read it together. Ireland's HSE offers 4,710 relocation, 10,000 euros relocation package for international health workers. I'll explain. For international health workers, okay? Then Dublin, as at March 2026, it says the Irish government body, the HSE, which stands for Health Service Executive, has confirmed that its comprehensive international recruitment package remains open, offering up to 4,710 euros. 4,710 euros. Okay? Approximately 7.5 million naira. Okay? To help healthcare workers relocate to Ireland. So I'm going to explain, like I said. But let's just read down a little more. Okay? As the UK tightens its visa rules, okay? See, as if it's a competition. As it tightened its own visa rules, Ireland's Health Service Executive immediately, you know, started this particular thing you're seeing here, okay? Which is funding relocation. So, I don't know why I said this, looking like a competition. Were they waiting for these people to close and then to start attracting? So it says, which is equivalent to their our Nigeria. So just trying to tell you that their own in case you don't know the meaning of HSE, and their health service executive, just like our own Nigerian Federal Ministry of Health. Okay. So so this move is for those qualified candidates to fill, you know, vital roles in the public hospitals and care centers. So this is very interesting, that your people who are qualified and who are ready to, you know, go to Ireland to work as health workers are now going to benefit this value of money, the cash support for relocation, and it is to the tune of 7.5 million naira. So that's why I said this, I'm not going to keep this interesting information for later, that because I'm already talking about health worker visa, I just want to talk about Ireland. Ireland does not have a specific visa type called the health worker visa, okay, like the UK. However, there are two categories, for this work visa processing. The first category is the critical skills employment permit, and the next one is the general employment permit. Now, to determine which employment permit you need, or for a specific role in Ireland, you must first consult two official government lists that categorizes jobs based on national labor need. So firstly, the critical skills employment permit is reserved for roles in the critical skills occupation. So you have to go to the website and check the, for example, if you're a nurse or a doctor, you go to the critical skills occupation list to see if your job role, your job type appears on that list. So jobs like engineers, IT professionals, specialized medical staff like the nurses, doctors, pharmacists, and some of these actually are usually on that list. Okay. So, and again, most times they are exempted from labor market testing, offering a fast track to permanent residency, meaning that most times they are always, on that list, this kind of professionals. So conversely, the general employment permit, on the other hand, serves as the default category for any role that is not on the critical skills list. Now, let me explain. So on that critical list that we talked about, critical skills occupation list, if, for example, you are an accountant, or let's say you are a chef, or any other occupation, and you go to that list and you don't find your job type, automatically you fall under the general employment permit. But before you conclude, you need to go to another list that is called the ineligible list of occupation, which contains jobs like retails or cleaning that cannot be sponsored. For example, there are jobs that you may not find under any of these two. You checked for the critical skills occupation list and you did not find the job there. And probably you've also looked at of course, it's a default, that by default, you're already under the general employment permit. That means you can apply. But before you conclude, since I'm not on the critical skill, my job is not the critical skill occupation list, I can apply for the general employment permit. Before you conclude, check the list that is called the ineligible list. For example, jobs like cleaning jobs, are actually most likely not going to be on any of on the critical skill occupation, and you are most likely going to find it on the ineligible list, meaning that there will not even be any point of you applying, because there is no list for the general employment permit for you to check whether it is there. Okay, so if you don't find your job type in this critical skills occupation, you just go ahead to apply for your for the general permit employment. But before then, go to the ineligible list and find out if your job is counted or timed as ineligible. Okay, most ineligible jobs are the kind of jobs that they don't expect. The UK government, the Irish government do not expect employers to get people from foreigners to come and work, do that work, because the government believe that they can find those kind of employees in their own country. They can find local candidates for that same job. Okay, now for even the general permit, the employer must typically prove to the government that they could not find a local candidate and that they advertise this job for 28 days before they actually employed you. So that is just what I wanted to explain. So it's not like the UK job that has a specific term for that is called health worker visa. This is categorized into two: the critical skills occupation, critical skills employment permit, or the general employment permit. So if you're a chef, you are most likely going to apply for under general employment permit. But if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an IT professional or an engineer, most likely you're going for the first one, which is the critical skill employment permit. So that's about this. Now, before we continue, it is very important to understand these acronyms, the full meaning of these acronyms, and have at least a simplified definition for each one, so that when you come across it in your course of application, we're talking about Ireland now. So these acronyms you're seeing now are just peculiar to Ireland. So in case you come across it during your application, maybe on their website, or you during the course of this video, you hear the acronym, so you need to know the meaning. And this is not just all the abbreviations you might come across, but let's start with this. So the DETE stands for the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and they are the Irish government body responsible for approving and issuing all employment permits for foreign workers. Okay, then we have the EPOS, which is the Employment Permit Online System, which is the official website and digital portal where you or your employer will submit your work permit and upload your documents. Then we have the QQI. Yeah, when you hear me say work permit for Ireland, we're going to still see what I'm going to say now. We're going to see it later, but I needed to just make it clear that it is quite different from that of the UK. Now, in this Ireland system, you will hear of work permits, and you also hear of visa during the course of visa application. So then we have the QQI. So this is the Quality and Qualification Ireland, QQI. And this agency oversees education and training standards. So because most care workers in Ireland must have a QQI level of 5, to be able to get a permit, to be eligible for a permit. Then we have the ERN, and that is your employer's registered number, which is a unique tax identification number that every legal employer in Ireland uses to pay wages and report taxes to the government. Then you hear of the CRO, and this is the company's registration office. Now, the central authority, this is the central authority that records the legal existence and registration details of every business operating in Ireland. Then we have the HSE, and this stands for the Health Service Executive, and it is the national agency in Ireland responsible for providing all public and social services to the population. Now, it is similar to our own Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria, and also the NHS for UK. But remember, our focus now is on Ireland, but I just needed to say it. Now, to move to Ireland as a health or support worker, you must follow a strict 2-stage process. So it's not like the UK visa that is just a one-way visa application. This has 2 different stages. Okay, let me come again. When you want to apply for health or support worker visa to Ireland, you must follow these 2 stages before you can be able to say you have completed your visa application. Okay, so first is securing a work permit from the Department of Enterprise. Okay, we talked about the DETE, right? You have to first secure this work permit from that body of the government, and then obtaining an entry visa from the Department of Justice. So there are 2 different government bodies that handles the visa application processes. And the first stage is for you to start with the Department of Enterprise. Then you go to the Department of Justice. So the Department of Enterprise handles the work permit. And then when you have secured your work permit, then you go to the Department of Justice to apply for entry visa. All this on the Irish government official website for immigration. Okay, so the work permit, which is the employment permit process, begins once you have a formal job offer from an Irish employer, maybe from HSE, which is their own public, or let me say, Federal Ministry of Health, like we discussed earlier. So their own health service executive. It's either you got employed by their government institution, or from a private care home. So whichever way, you need an employment letter, an offer, a job offer letter. So when you secure that, your employer or you must then apply for an employment permit through the online EPOS. given the full meaning of all this acronym in the previous slide. Okay, so if you are a health worker like a nurse or a doctor or other professional health workers, you will then apply for a critical skill employment permit, because we are trying to say the first step is to apply for a work permit. And we also earlier on discussed that there are two types of permits depending on your job roles as a health worker. So if you're from the profession, if you're a professional health worker like the higher skilled, if it is UK, they use the word higher skilled. So if you're a professional health worker, which is like doctors and nurses, when you want to apply for work permits, the right one to apply for is the critical skill employment permit. Okay, we can interchange the two words, that you say work permit or you say employment permit. Okay, that is the one you apply for, which requires a minimum salary. We've talked about threshold in the UK visa, but it's similar, the threshold, like in terms of the meaning of threshold, salary threshold. So for these health professionals, the minimum salary expectation is 40,904 euros. Okay, that's the amount of money your employer is expected to be paying you as a minimum salary, before it can be allowed to employ you, or before you're allowed to apply for visa. So, and then this allows you also this also allows your family to join you immediately. Remember, there is also what we said, what we call the relocation package that comes with it, which is around 4,000 something. We talked about it earlier on. So if you're preparing, have that at the back of your mind, that you have a support from the Irish government to move, to relocate. Now, if on the other hand you're a support worker, you want to apply for visa, the first thing is also the same as the other one, to apply for a work permit first. But the kind of work permit you will need to apply is not the critical skills employment permit. The one you need to apply for is the general employment permit. It is called general employment permit. So that is another type of work permit for support workers or lower level health workers, right? Like health assistants. So and the minimum salary for that one is 32,691 euro. Okay. Then next is that you will need a labor market need test. I don't know if I mentioned that abbreviation, LMNT, when I was trying to talk about acronyms. I don't know if I mentioned it, but that actually it's an evidence that your employer must prove that they advertise this job in Ireland and in European Union for 28 days first, and probably did not get any potential staff, employees, before they had to put it out there for foreigners to also apply. So they need to submit an evidence that yes, this job was advertised locally and there was no employee that met our requirements. That is why we openly advertised it and made it worldwide, and that's why you're being employed. So they have to justify this, and they have to bring up an evidence to back it up, which I think it comes in form of a letter. They know how to prove it. It's something that, so long as they advertised and you applied and you got it, they know how to handle that. All you need to do is to ask for it when you want to apply for your visa. So continuation. So we're still talking about the work permit, because we said that's the first stage before you even think of applying for your visa, because you need the work permit to be able to apply for the visa. So so once you get the LMNT and the Department of Enterprise confirms that your salary and qualifications, like your degrees, or maybe if you're for a support worker, your QQI level is 5, then they will issue you a certified employment permit. So at this point, you cannot travel yet. This document is simply legally, a permission slip to hold to hold for that specific job. Okay, so the stage 2 now is visa application, which is called the entry visa, also called the long stay D visa. So if you want to apply for work visa after the work permit, you need what is called the long stay D visa, or what is also called the entry visa. So once you have your physical or digital work permit in your hand, either the printed copy and the soft copy, you must apply for permission to actually now enter the Irish border, which is called the entry visa. So from Nigeria, you start by filling out the AVATS online, AVATS, the online application form, and then you select the long stay, D visa, which is the employment category. After submitting the form, you must book an appointment at a VFS Global office or center, either in Abuja or in Lagos. Of course, for all Schengen visas, you use the VFS office. They have 2 branches, Lagos and Abuja, to provide your fingerprints and a photo biometrics. At this appointment, you must submit a comprehensive document pack. So we're going to look at the documents you will need, okay, while submitting that visa application. So here are the key documents you need when submitting application for work permit and then for visa. Remember, we said work permit, then entry visa. So I'm putting up the whole documents together for you to know what you need even ahead of time before you start making your application. So the first on my list is the employment contract, okay, because that's the basics of the application, right? You need to have a job offer. You need to have gotten your contract signed by both of you, you and the employer, before you even think of applying for first the work permit, then the entry visa. So the work contract, like I said, signed by both of you, bearing in mind the salary threshold, the minimum salary, okay, which I said is standard for standard rules, at least between 32,600 to 36,605 thousand in euros anyway. Yeah, but for professional health workers, we also say that one should be between 40,000 euros to 42,000 euros. So you will need that, your employment contract signed by both the employer and yourself. Then you will need a clear copy of your current valid passport, of course. A passport that is not expired, that's the one that is valid. Then you will need a passport photograph. That's a digital passport sized photo of yourself, okay? So you also need to show your qualifications. So you need a copy of your degree or higher qualification that is directly relevant to the job you're going for. But if you're, apart from that, if you're a care worker, you need to provide a QQL level 5 certificate, or you write a letter of confirmation. You don't have to worry if you don't have the certificate. All you need to do is to write a confirmation letter that within 2 years of coming into Ireland to work, that you'll be able to obtain it. So that is what you can also use in place of the QQI level 5 certificate. So then you need an employer's details. That's the company's ERON and the CRO numbers, which I gave the full meaning of these acronyms in the previous slides. And if you're a professional, a medical professional, or a health professional, you will need also to submit a PIN or a registration number or a PIN. That is, usually you must have to provide it from your registration from the medical council, the Nigerian Medical Council. So you need to provide that. Then you also need to write a statement of purpose, which is a brief description of your role and why your skills are, critical to Ireland. Then the next one is the labor market needs test, which is the LMNT evidence. So this is a proof that the employer advertised this job for 28 days on job, Ireland and US. That's a portal, a website that so this is not it's not actually required if the person, if the job is for medical, for health professionals like doctors, nurses, and the rest, the ones that apply for critical skills employment permits. The first, I told you there are two types of work permits, but for this, for general work permit, employment permit, that is if you're a lower skilled health worker, like the health assistants, or a sport worker, so, or care workers. So this one is compulsory for that particular type of work permit. So your employer must provide a proof. I think they already know how to do that. If the employer took you in, employed you, offered you this employment, they already know that they have to present this labor market need test. You don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is to request for it from your employer. So then there's another one, which is the 50-50 rule, and it's a strict requirement by the Irish government, which is the body we call the DETA, okay, to ensure that businesses in Ireland do not rely solely on foreign labor. So that instead they maintain a balanced workforce of local and international staff. So they also have to, provide an evidence for that. And you also don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is to request for it. So then you need a bank statement, of course, 6 months bank statement, evidence that you have savings for in the last 6 months before the application. So these particular sets of documents are the ones you need for the entry visa. First is the 6 months statement of account that I mentioned earlier on. Then you need your police clearance certificate. That's from your home country. That's from Nigeria. If you're applying from Nigeria or you're Nigerian. Then you also need a medical insurance, which is the policy documents. Then basically these are the documents you need. You also need a work permit. Remember, you've concluded the work permit application, and if it has been granted, you now have your work permit, either in digital form or the hard copy. Then you need to submit it alongside these other documents for the entry visa application. Okay, so these are the documents you need. So thank you very much for listening. This is where I'm going to draw the curtain for today. I'm so grateful for every one of you that stayed to the end of this video, and I'd like to promise you that in our next episode I'll be dropping official links of the Irish government verified websites where you can see jobs. I'm even going to take you through those websites for you to see how you can make the applications for jobs. Okay, and in our previous episode where I talked about the skilled worker visa, I'm going to be listing different kinds of skills that you might even already have, or you might be practicing already, or you might want to pursue at the moment, so that you can prepare yourself for the application. So I'm going to be showing and listing different kinds of skills for that particular type of visa, which is the skilled work visa. Okay, so aside that, I'm also going to show you the different kinds of support work that you can because most times people think of only healthcare assistants as the only support work or in the health field, or only home caregivers, thinking that these are the only works that support workers can do, or roles that support workers can apply for. And no, there are so many kinds of jobs or roles that are under the support worker visa for this particular. Remember, we don't actually call it support worker visa for Ireland. It is called the general employment permit, right? But there are jobs that I'm going to list out that you will be able to know whether it's what you already have or you want to develop yourself for before you're able to apply for that visa. So get ready, because I'm sure that after taking you through this, you'll be ready to apply for your visa. So thank you very much once again for listening, and please be a returning viewer, and also encourage people. Drop your comments. Ask your questions in the comment section. Don't leave without dropping a comment for us. Drop a comment, as many as possible. Drop your questions there. Whatever you want to say, put it in the comment section. I'll see you. Bye. See you in the next episode.